This is my review for Xenoblade Chronicles 2 for the Nintendo Switch. I didn't realize it, but this is actually a Nintendo property. This is a first-party title, so it's not available anywhere else. It definitely has a lot of Final Fantasy VII kind of inspirations, but I will say that the one thing this has over some of those Final Fantasy VII games is just there's a lot of cutscenes. There's a lot. Like, Final Fantasy kind of thrusts you into the action. There's just a lot of, like, they kind of explain as they go. This one has a lot of expository dialogue, and it was at least an hour and 10 minutes before I was actually on to the first mission out of the tutorial. That being said, I'm still not complete. After playing almost over 2 hours, I'm still not complete with all of the options and all of the things that there is to do in this game. Graphics-wise, I'm actually gonna give it a 9 for something that's running on the Switch. There's a ton of great graphics. They look really good. It feels kind of like a Monster Hunter kind of game. The graphics are good quality. Everything is well modeled, well detailed. There's lots of effects, lots of particle effects. Everything's running on the Switch very beautifully. Of course, you'd expect that coming from a game designed for the Switch exclusively. So, but it's overall, I mean, 9 is pretty darn good. Graphics wise, there's a lot to do. Gameplay, this is where I'm gonna kind of give it a little bit of a lower rating. I imagine if you're really into RPGs or JRPGs or just RPGs in general, there's a lot to do. There are drivers and there are blades, and blades are essentially like familiars to the drivers. Drivers are the wielder of the weapon, right? It's there's a little symbiosis going on there, and you can pick multiple drivers and multiple blades, and you can have a party of up to 3. And each driver has a blade that he wields, and the blade is kind of an assist character, but can exist on their own. Has some moves of their own as well. So there's tons to explore there. There's tons of abilities, there's skills, there's passive skills, there's all sorts of stuff you can learn. There's equipment to equip that gives you different bonuses and different abilities. And you can equip that for each, the driver and the blade, for all 6 essentially people in your party, giving you just an endless number of combinations for powers and abilities. There's a lot to do. I found it a bit overwhelming. I found it to be a bit too much. It was too much to take in. I imagine that you could probably play this game successfully by dumbing it down, paring it down to the core essentials, just running the same driver and the same blade through the entire game, and probably do okay. But there's a lot to do in this game. Also, gameplay was a little weird. The combat was a little strange. There was a lot of times I was taking damage because there isn't really a way to manually attack. You have to have an enemy selected and targeted, and then have your weapon out and be within range, and your character will do the rest. Sometimes I had my weapon out and I was standing in front of the enemy, but I wasn't attacking because I didn't actually have this enemy selected to target. So there was a lot of little issues like that I found with it. I would have preferred something a little bit more open world. I was expecting something, because it looks so much like Monster Hunter, I think I was expecting something a little bit more like Monster Hunter. I was expecting to run up to them and actually press a button to attack. So gameplay wise, I'm gonna give it a 7.5. I was torn between a 7 and an 8 because I feel like it deserves an 8 or maybe even higher, but I'm gonna bring it down because I'm not a big fan of that. But I'm also gonna say that I'm not gonna go as low as a 7. I'm gonna give it a 7.5. It's pretty good gameplay if you're into RPGs, JRPGs with that whole like anime thing going on. It's pretty cool. Audio-wise, this is going to sound super strange, but this comes with, on the cartridge, complete on the cart, there's no downloads needed to play the game, the English dubbing for this game. And English dubbing is British dubbing. Everybody is British, and it's very, very obvious. The British dialogue feels stilted, and it's kind of a poor delivery. I wasn't a fan. Someone actually told me to download the DLC, so you have to go to the eShop, and you have to download the free DLC to get the Japanese voice pack. The Japanese voice pack, while it does take a little bit of time to download, but once you turn that on, it's a lot more vibrant. There's a lot better acting involved there. And even though you can't understand what they're saying, each character is very unique and has a good delivery. So I would, listen to the English a bit and then switch over to the Japanese, and you'll definitely tell a difference. All the other audio is good. The music is actually pretty decent. I loved the music. It built tension during the boss fights. It brought up the energy of the fighting sequences. There was lots and lots of cinema scenes with great music. So let's go ahead and give the audio here. I'm gonna base this on the Japanese audio because it's available. I'm gonna base my whole score on that, and I'm gonna give audio an 8.5. Okay, I'm going to give it the 8.5 because it makes the Japanese audio available if you want it, and I highly recommend you get it. Because the British, it's English. I say English, but it's British. It's very corny. It's like, cheerio, governor. It's really bad. It's just don't do the Japanese. I promise. Story-wise, I was not expecting the story that this delivered. The story is complex. It's a lot more complex than I can do justice to it here, and I don't even know it all. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you that right now I'm going to give it probably also an 8.5. It's pretty darn intriguing. I think it's pretty good. At 8.5, there's a lot to unpack there, and there's a lot of characters that are ancient, and they all know each other, and they've known each other in a previous lifetime or in the previous battle, and this is one of those kind of things where hundreds of years have passed, and now there's a new thing, and everybody's got to fight this battle again, good versus evil. And then, of course, there's the characters that don't know all this stuff, and they're just living their little normal lives, and they're getting wrapped up in this adventure for the first time. And so we're kind of learning about it as the player, as the characters are learning about all this lore and this backstory. The world building is excellent. There's a lot of people you can talk to, and even when you run through the towns, there are people having conversations off to the side, and you can kind of see those word bubbles pop up, and you can see them saying, "Oh, I'm worried about the mayor," or something like that. There's just things going on that help you feel connected to the whole world, and then that town and everything. Everything is very well written and well connected on that level. There's not a piece or a character that doesn't really have a purpose or have a story to tell. So story-wise, 8.5. I would even round up a little bit. So overall, the average score right now is 8.375. It's only brought down a little bit because of my complaints for gameplay, but I would imagine that RPG fans are going to give this a 9 or a 10. Me, I'm going to round down to an 8 because it's below 8.5. I'm going to round down to an 8, but that's pretty strong from me. I'm kind of a platformer guy, but as far as RPGs go, this is pretty decent.